Welcome to the Purpose Chasers podcast, where those who refuse to let odds or naysayers stand in their way come to chase and catch their true calling. I'm your host, Mark Crandall. In each episode, we shine a spotlight on artists and musicians who dare to dream bigger. You'll hear the real-world tactical moves these Purpose Chasers have taken to carve out their legacies, and I'll break down the marketing strategies you can swipe and implement today. Let's dive in and start chasing our purpose. Don't forget to leave a follow on Spotify or wherever you stream from. Let's dive into this episode. Welcome back, Purpose Chasers, to this episode of the Purpose Chasers podcast. Super pumped for my guest today. So I met this woman, Danna, at a mastermind, I don't even know, probably 3 months ago at the time of this airing. And she was asleep with a big vision. And I have had the honor and privilege, I don't mean asleep, she was sleeping on her dream is what I mean. I don't mean she was like on her pillow, taking a little nappy poo. I mean, she had a massive dream and she was sleeping on it because she was scrambled and didn't really know how to get out of her own way and really get into action. And I've had the privilege and honor of working with her. I started consulting / working with her on her movement because I was so touched by what she is out to create in the world in the realm of for teachers. And it just we're going to get into this interview. It's going to be fire. Her mission is just so epic that it truly touched my heart. And I jumped in with her, and maybe we'll get into some of the work that we've been doing in this episode, but I have done a lot of work. She has done a lot of work since that mastermind. And I'm super, super excited to have Danna Thomas on, founder of which you can see in the background, Happy Teacher Revolution. Danna, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Mark. I'm really excited to connect.
Let's get right into it. So you started the Happy Teacher Revolution, which is a series of self-care / educational resources for teachers. And until I met you at the mastermind and we had we had a few different one-on-one conversations, I guess even though I was a social worker in schools and I was, working with at-risk youth in the schools, I guess I didn't really have any understanding until working with you on what we've been building, like what teachers go through. So I guess I'm curious as to how this came about, this Happy Teacher Revolution, because I know, based off my experience of working with Purpose Chasers, that there's always a bottom that creates epic change. And I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share more, Mark, and with your community. And thank you again. I'm so grateful to be here and to share more of my journey with Happy Teacher Revolution. So teachers go through a lot. Absolutely. And I realized, honestly, this before I was a teacher, when I was still a student. And when I was in high school and college, I suffered from crippling anxiety and depression and panic attacks. I felt incredibly isolated and alone. I didn't realize that I represented 1 in 5 Americans that grapples with a mental illness and 1 in 5 college students who's contemplated suicide. And I was very well practiced and rehearsed in putting on a smiling face and pretending like everything was okay when it really wasn't. And I was able to hide it from my parents and I could hide it from my friends, but I couldn't hide it from my teachers. And my educators were, I consider, my emotional first responders who recognize those subtle changes in behavior as warning signs and encouraged me to seek treatment and to get help. And if it wasn't for my teachers, I wouldn't be here speaking with you on this podcast today. They truly saved my life and were the reason I became a teacher myself. So I served as a Baltimore City public school teacher for 7 years and recognized firsthand how we truly are not adequately supporting educators for the emotional demands of the job, specifically working with children who have experienced trauma. And we know that trauma in a child's life can range from any number of things, whether it's losing a pet or losing a parent, moving neighborhoods or moving countries. experiencing a natural disaster or witnessing an act of gun violence. And unfortunately, our teachers and students now are well practiced in our armed lockdown drills for armed shooters, and our teachers have to recognize all of these warning signs of mental illness in students, which is on the rise even from when I was in high school and in college. And so I really, because of my own healing journey as an advocate for mental health awareness, I was the national spokeswoman for NAMI Maryland, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and the Music for Mental Health campaign. And because I very much was transforming my pain and my own personal trauma into purpose myself as an educator, so many other teachers, my friends, colleagues, came out to me about things that they were struggling with that they hadn't necessarily shared before. And I realized that we really all craved an opportunity to come together and to connect. And that's how Happy Teacher Revolution was born. And it's just been such an incredible journey. We started our first online training 30 months ago, and now we're launching a brand new opportunity for teachers to transform their lives and their communities too.
So for the sake of it's just epic. I'm so moved by what you're doing, but for the sake of bringing maximum value to the Purpose Chasers community, which is why we're here, I want to ask you, where were you at when I met you at the mastermind? Because your vision for what you want, the change that you want to create inside of the education system is so large. And when you shared it with me, and you know, for the sake of, you know, making you look some kind of way, and you teared up and you started getting authentic with me about what you wanted to do, but what you were actually doing, right? Like, were there limiting beliefs in you that were preventing you from going from what you were doing to what we're creating now?
Oh yeah, big time. And there were limiting beliefs that I didn't even realize I had in so many ways, because it was on a repeat record player in my head, and being able to stop and interrupt it and press pause and realize that I have an opportunity to think bigger and make an even broader impact. I think there's so many educators who are predominantly female who, we, at least I very much didn't necessarily have the confidence or belief in myself to make a larger impact beyond the four walls of my classroom. But here's the thing, is our teachers are such influencers and innovators and change makers already in the role that they're doing as educators, that I want to empower other educators to follow their intuition and their belief in themselves and to make something big. And it's not like I wasn't successful before that moment that we connected, Mark. We had just won the Johns Hopkins Social Innovation Lab. I had expanded Happy Teacher Revolution 26 states. We were global, but at the same time, I still wasn't thinking big enough. I was able to pull the numbers and the data around the 3.6 million teachers in the US, with an estimated 3.3 million who are stressed out and 80 million children sitting in the classroom with a stressed out teacher. I can quote all the statistics and the research and the data, but the thing that was truly transformational was thinking about the long-term, large-scale impact of a global movement.
Yeah, and it's to see the transition that's gone on with you has just been epic, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and watching this move. And it wasn't that you hadn't done a lot, because you rattled off everything, that had been accomplished in such a short time. But I think it's so common for individuals to think very, very small. And because they're thinking about them, they're thinking about themselves and they're the movement. When you start thinking about the movement as a whole, which is a lot of what, you and I have conversed about as we've moved forward, it's like, shout out Benita. I know you're listening, girl. Right? Like when you start to take a look at all of and you've started to look at that, you're like, oh my God, I have this person and this person and this person and this person. Like when you start to really look at it, it becomes much larger than you. And that's the shift that I've seen go on with you, is you're like, oh wow, I don't have to take all this on. I don't have to do all of this. And it's been epic. I'm like, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. Like I didn't want to take Danna on as a client. I just have to say, because I had a lot of work. on my plate and a lot that I was doing. And it was that Sunday right before we left where we were sitting in those super uncomfortable chairs. You know what I'm saying? The bar stools, and you you got emotional when you were talking about the impact that you wanted to have, especially when I started to challenge you on thinking bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was like, I got it. Like, I got to jump in. Let's do this. So I think about it now more than ever working with you. So I was a little shit in school. Like, I was a little shit. I had so much trauma. And as I played it back, I can see like what I was doing to the teachers and how they were carrying that over. And it really makes me emotional now when I think about it. And I think about the solution that you've created in Happy Teacher and the revolution that you've created. Let's just get right into it. We just created a free program for teachers called the Starter Pack, right? Which is a series of exercises that you walk teachers through to start to implement self-care in their life and in their classroom. And I got to tell you, like, I've watched all the videos multiple times, mainly because I was putting them on the website that we're using. But I started to think about how teachers are just not, like, obviously there's a lot of conversation around teachers who are underpaid, right? That conversation's been going on for a long, long time. And then when you started to educate me on how most school districts have budgets for, what are they? CEUs, continuing education,
professional development, and
professional development. And you started to tell me about how you were working with school districts to kind of flip that and to start to focus and use some of that budget on implementing some self-care practices for their teachers. That's when it really shifted for me. And I still don't think you have any recognition of what you're about to do, but like, it's massive. What inside of this starter pack that you've created do you think could benefit every teacher on this earth?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think first and foremost, what comes to mind is our resources around burnout. Because the thing about burnout, it affects folks and anyone who is in a relationship intensive profession. So anyone who is in a caregiver capacity for others has to make sure they're pouring into themselves. They're making sure that their light is shining bright instead of burning out. We don't have to light ourselves on fire in order to keep other people warm. And so it's just one of our series of videos to help support educators, totally free through our starter pack. But this is the beginning of truly a global initiative to support children by supporting the professionals who are working directly with them. And with Happy Teacher Revolution, honestly, our perspective is that it's not sufficient to do things better. We need to do better things. And so the thing about our caregivers is that
mic drop,
dude. Like, it's not sufficient to do things better. We need to do better things. And so with Happy Teacher Revolution, we're reframing self-care as professional development. We're evaluating hugely successful companies like Google who are investing in their employees' happiness and wellness. And Google has been able to recognize that when they invest those dollars into their current employees, their employees take less sick days, they're more productive, they're more likely to come back the next year. And so when I'm connecting with districts, I'm asking them, how much money are you spending on teacher turnover? In my state of Maryland, where I taught in Baltimore, we're the bottom quintile nationally in the US. We're spending $100 million every single year in Maryland because of the constant recruitment and training of new teachers. And we're spending up to $12,000 per teacher every single year in professional development, but less than 29% of teachers actually find it useful. So if instead we reframe the opportunity to support our professionals and our teachers, especially in their first 5 years, which 50% of teachers are leaving in the first 5 years That's costing nationally estimated $7.3 billion. And so what we're offering is an opportunity for educators to take care of themselves, to align these practices to what they're already doing. And what's really cool are the opportunities to do it with students in your classroom, right? Like for me, I was held more accountable when I started doing these mindfulness and breathing practices with my kindergartners, because then when they saw Miss Thomas getting heated, they would take me aside, and my 5 and 6 year olds would say, Miss Thomas, I think you need to take 5 deep breaths. And I'm like, you're right. Like, you're totally right. So it's like we in our starter program and Happy Teacher Revolution, we encourage folks to find wellness accountability partners in their building and things like that. But honestly, you can find a wellness accountability partner with your own students too.
Well, I want to, for those listening who may not understand what you shared, what is burnout? Like what, and I'm very clear on what it is, but I want to define this for those who don't know what that is. Like what do you mean by burnout?
So burnout is when, the dictionary definition is truly when the fuel that you're using runs out. But when we talk about burnout for caregiver professionals, it actually shows in signs of physical and mental exhaustion and feeling powerless over what you're able to do. Burnout is something that can affect us, new teachers, the first week of school, just as much as burnout can affect folks long term. We also differentiate between burnout and compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is that loss of compassion over an extended period of time. So compared to burnout, with burnout, you might feel restored or rejuvenated over spring break, summer break, the weekends. But with compassion fatigue, it's a little bit harder to interrupt or reverse because it's that extended period of time. And so that's also some really important differentiation between these different topics, because they're often used interchangeably when they are in fact very different. So burnout compared to compassion fatigue, and then there's vicarious trauma and toxic stress and moral distress. And so we go into that more with our Happy Teacher Revolution training, but I think it is something really important and empowering for folks to name and identify.
Yeah, I'm like, I was going to go off on a tangent. Like you're just so, like your knowledge around this issue and your compassion to fix it and to help is just so inspiring in a topic that, I mean, when I think about, and I'm a social worker, I mean, obviously you know that, and I think the podcast listeners know that as well. So I don't ever remember hearing this talked about among teachers, and I worked in the schools, right? So all I ever heard was teachers are underpaid, teachers are underpaid, teachers are underpaid. That's why they're quitting. That's why they're quitting. And then as I've gone back through my own life and evaluated, my classroom experiences, even in college, every CEU that we have to take is around serving our clients better. Mm-hmm. What if there were CEUs around serving ourselves better? And as I'm going through your content, and I'm just like blown away at what is being presented. Like this is something that translates into so many professions. And I want to talk about social workers for a moment. Social workers are, in my experience, overweight. They are drinking heavily. I had more, friends in my cohort that were abusing substances, right? They were in therapy themselves, and every CEU or professional development. So when I would talk to them about going to a conference or investing in a course or a certification program, it's like foreign to them. Why would you spend that much money? Like, why would you put your time into that? And I was like, because I need to come first, because without me, I can't do, right. And it hit me very early on when I was working for the state. When I did a week-long silent meditation retreat. And that's when I really realized what the work that I was doing in the world was actually doing to me. And not only to me, right? Because I think about a stressed out teacher in the classroom, and with a little knucklehead like me, little Mark the knucklehead. And I was a little asshole. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out. Like I was throwing stealing their candy. I would get in their purse. I was flipping desks, doing all the chaos that I was doing. And when I think about me, then I think about a burnt out teacher, a teacher who doesn't have the fuel for the flame to burn anymore, taking me on, my behavior, my actions. And then they still have whatever 6 periods left of the day after me. And there's a little knucklehead Mark in every one of their classes, and they go home, and what do they have left for their family? Like, what do they have left for their wife, their husband, like their kids? And then you've explained to me, like, yeah, they have to lesson plan, like they have to grade papers. And so it just became very, very real for me. And that's why I'm so passionate. And I wanted to get you on the podcast, because I just think it's so, so powerful. So Danna, what game plan do you have to continue to mentally level up so that you continue to grow with this movement?
For me, it has absolutely been a journey for all of us together. And as much as I'm researching and collecting data and interviewing educators and stakeholders all over the country, all over the world, I'm realizing that I need to remind myself of these practices too, and live it alongside and with this community. And they remind me of that. All of you remind me of that, and that's what's been such a beautiful gift, is that in 2014, 2015 school year, when I first started Happy Teacher Revolution, it's a bright, positive, awesome initiative, but at the same time, like, our story very much began from a place of darkness and desperation and pain. And I was a burnt out teacher when I started this. I was desperate for answers, because I had 39 kindergartners in my classroom in Southeast Baltimore, and 26 of them were beginning language learners. And there was just toxicity all around. There's a toxic building. There's toxic relationships. I
What do you mean a toxic building?
So there was asbestos in the tiles and lead in the water, and there was no heating and no air conditioning. And I would have to come in early to wipe off the mice feces from my students' pencil boxes. And I even got reprimanded, and so did my kiddos, during the polar vortex, when I allowed my 5-year-olds to wear their jackets in the classroom. And we had a teacher's lounge that was probably the most toxic space. I was microwaving my lunch one day, and I couldn't tell how many seconds were left because of the roaches crawling in front of the numbers. And I would drive home, and I would drink too much and eat too much and not sleep, and be scrolling on my phone looking up pro bono lawyers in Baltimore about, why were there education policies around class size limits for daycares, but not kindergarten classrooms. And on top of all this, my administration at the time was abusing their authority and power and sexually harassing young female teachers on the staff who weren't tenured, because we were too scared to speak up. And so the level of toxicity was in the environment, it was in the leadership, it was in the curriculum that wasn't appropriate for the students in my classroom. And I was desperate, and I looked to my left and I looked to my right to my fellow educators, and I thought, well, at least we have each other, and we will start there. And so my vision for this movement is to continue to be there for each other. There are so many policies and systems that need to change, and Happy Teacher Revolution is absolutely a part of that. But we want to offer support for each other for Monday morning, for tomorrow. And I think systemically, what my vision truly is to empower educators to be leaders and edupreneurs themselves, to be that light in their community, to pour into themselves, to pour into one another, because it has a ripple effect into the lives of everyone that we're surrounded by.
Girl, this may be the best interview I've done on this podcast. Like, I'm just being straight.
Mark, you have an amazing interview. I love your podcast so much, and there are so many amazing sound bites from all of your interviews. And so
no, this is
grateful.
fire. So, Purpose Chasers, like, let's re-listen to this episode like a couple times. I just want to be like, this is the definition. Leaders come from pain when they've identified an action and they revolt against it. And if you look at what Danna is doing, and not just Danna, there's an army of happy teachers. Shout out, Benita.
Benita, Karina, Anton,
Yeah,
Alex, I know you're listening.
I'm about to start getting on calls with these folks, and we're about to really launch what Danna has created to empower individuals. So, woo, this episode's got me fired up, girl. I'm serious. Like, and I'm like, I was like, come on, let's do this episode. Like, I want to be done with my day. And now I'm on this episode. I'm like, it's never going to end. Like, Cody and Elaine are going to be editing this thing forever. There's a myth in social work. And I don't know if this is true, guys. This is not a setup question if you're listening. There's a myth in social work. We were essentially taught in grad school that social workers should live just above the poverty line of our clients. That is essentially what's preached to us. And when I left my job and became an entrepreneur, and I said, no, I'm not, like, I have $130,000 in student loan debt. Like, I'm not going to be broke. Is that similar to teaching? Similar philosophy? I'm asking. I don't know.
Well, I think most folks who go into education know that they're not doing it for the money or the paycheck, but I think it is horrifying that our teachers are on the cover of Time magazine for selling their blood plasma because they're not earning a living wage.
I did not even see that.
Yeah,
That's a thing.
Yeah, they were on the cover of Time magazine. Yeah, last year.
So I gotta plug this too, because inside of the Happy Teacher Revolution, Danna has created a platform for teachers to actually benefit from the cost of the programs that she's created. And I just think it's brilliant on so many different levels. So if you're a teacher listening to this episode, or on Danna's Instagram, or on my Facebook, wherever you hear this message, go get the starter pack, become a part of the revolution. If you're a social worker, and I have a lot of social worker friends, rise up, stand up. You do not need to live broke and poor. And I don't just mean financially. I mean internally. Like, you don't, like, you're serving at such a high level. And that's why, this is really why Danna and I clicked so well, is that I'm about service. I'm about impact. And I just got to be straight with you. The more impact I have in the world, the more I serve, the more money comes into my life. When I focus on money, I bang my head all over the place. When I focus on impact, it just pours. So I'm just so, so grateful to have you in my life and to be able to do the work that we're doing. I'm like super excited. And
me too.
And I don't want to get too long-winded on this episode, but Danna doesn't realize what she's created. Like, this is like the name, her brand name is what is about to happen. I can see a revolution in the education industry, the system as a whole coming. And I just got to be, I've said this over and over again, right? Gary Vee dropped up just an amazing video on it. Our education system is broken. We are teaching children to remember. Like, that's the way that most classrooms are teaching children. They're teaching them to remember. Even in grad school, it's remember, what was that? What was that line? What was that line? Which is, dude, I have a resource at my fingertips right now that remembers anything. It's called Google. Like, what if, on the other side of, rejuvenating teachers, we shifted the entire education system and we started to really, really tap into our youth and find out who, I remember this, and I'm going to share this because it highlights what I'm saying. I remember in second grade when Miss Frost went around the room and she asked us all what we wanted to be when we grow up. And at that time, I wanted to be a meteorologist. I wanted to tell the weather. Because my dad used to crack a joke, and he used to say, it's the greatest job in the world. You can be right 50% of the time or wrong 50% of the time. Either way, you're still right and you're still getting paid. And so I was like, but I used to look up at the sky and I wanted to study the stars and I wanted to do this. And then all the education system started to mold my brain. And can you imagine if there was a happy teacher there? Said, Mark, what does it look like for you to go to the moon? What does it look like for you to do that? What would you do? But there wasn't. it was Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, you know, in a test on when he sailed. And I don't want to get into a Christopher Columbus rant, but so Danna, closing remarks on this epic episode. What do you want to share with all the teachers that are out there? Social workers
and social work. And what I wanted
therapists.
to share is that everyone, the word teacher means anyone who's in the capacity to make a difference in the life of a child. And so if that describes you or sounds like you, this applies to you, right? Like anyone who is in a relationship intensive profession that has the opportunity to make an impact and a difference in the life of a child. And I remember going back to school shopping and my school supplies growing up. And then as a teacher, spending all of my money on my paycheck on school supplies for my students. You know, I had to buy their crayons and paper and snacks and all those things. But the number one school supply is an investment in yourself. Like the number one school supply doesn't just happen at back to school time. It's something that you do to invest in yourself, because when you invest in yourself, you're actually investing in those that you serve. And so what the Happy Teacher Revolution movement's all about, what our starter pack, what we've just released is all about, that's your school supply, right? That's the supplies that you need for yourself. And I'm just so grateful, Mark, for everything that you shared and for the opportunity to share more about Happy Teacher Revolution. I think there's just so many educators who are making just an incredible difference in the lives of kids every single day. And my goal is to keep you doing that important work, because it is just pure magic to watch a teacher in action. It's pure magic. And I think about, you know, all of the kiddos. Imagine if our students had a happy teacher in front of them from pre-K through 12th grade and in college and beyond. If they had an educator in front of them who was well rested and hydrated and modeling appropriate and healthy relationship skills and social emotional learning, then our students would have a higher level of social emotional learning too. And we're seeing that employers nowadays are prioritizing SEL skills over everything else. And so it really is not woo-woo, not fluff, not whatever. Like this is a research-based opportunity for you to grow professionally and personally at the same time.
You're such a badass girl. So you're like the most epic leader. So I want to know, when is the Revolution intro and the Revolutionary certification dropping?
Yeah, so our big drop is February 24th, 2020. So I am super excited to share this opportunity. This has been a long time coming in collaboration with the Johns Hopkins Social Innovation Lab and my work over the past few years in collecting and gathering this data into creating something that is useful and purposeful and intentional to help our educators, help our caregivers take care of themselves and take care of their communities. February 24th. Check it out. Happy Teacher Revolution.
And you can find all of the links, though. I mean, they'll be in iTunes, they'll be on Spotify, it'll be in the show notes on my website. So go there, click away. Thank you so much for coming on. And also thank you for what you're doing for our education system and for my son.
Thank you so much, Mark. That means so much to me.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Purpose Chasers podcast. If you're ready to take action, don't wait. Head over to thepurposechasers.com to access notes, resources, and a host of other tools to keep you moving forward. And if you want to supercharge your digital presence, visit scaletosaleconsulting.com to partner up with my team and amplify your impact. Let's turn your purpose into your biggest asset. Until next time, keep chasing, keep creating. Your purpose awaits.